go over to on YouTube to Darwin's Greatest Hits. Yeah, go to Darwin's Greatest Hits.
Yeah, let's do this. I believe it's EF, repeat caller, potential fan favorite.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you doing today? You're on with me, Jamie,
fine.
And Thomas Westbrook. Sorry, that was
Thomas.
bad, unintentional.
Well, you guys requested that I call back. So Now, Thomas, you were talking earlier about evidence. What I'd like to know from you is, how is the concept of evidence viable and meaningful in your worldview? Is there a fundamental absolute to existence that provides for causal relations? Because 2 weeks ago, Jamie said he rejected the idea that there's anything fundamentally absolute. So do you reject that there's anything fundamentally absolute? And if not, what is the absolute that provides for the viability of evidence or causal relations?
What do you mean by when you say something that's fundamentally absolute?
Well, it's something that is unconditionally non-dependent and provides for all dependency situations. So if you believe in evidence, you believe that there are causal relations and connections between events. What secures that there are causal relations between events? Is it something fundamentally absolute, or do you believe that by faith?
Okay, when you were talking about something that you said was non-dependent, what do you mean?
Yeah, something is absolute if it is fundamentally it exists, and it doesn't begin to exist, and it's non-dependent. In other words, it's not contingent.
Okay. So you're saying, do I believe that there is something that exists now that never started to exist?
Well, what I'm asking you is, since you're asserting that evidence is a viable concept in your atheistic outlook, evidence entails causal relations and connections between events. What ultimately and foundationally in your model of reality secures that?
It seems that God could not have created anything without causation. God couldn't have created causation because he would have needed causation to exist in order to have done so. Create is a causal notion, as we saw when we looked at the social construction issue. So there must be causation for God to create anything. It follows that he cannot create causation itself.
See, when you appeal to your sense perception to justify laws of nature, you have to presuppose laws of nature for the meaningfulness of eyesight. Are you aware that's begging the question?
Here's the dilemma EF wants to put you in. In justifying the existence of causal relations, if you use anything that involves a causal relation, like sense perception, then he charges you with begging the question. The only other option is to use something that does not involve a causal relation, in which case you arrived at your conclusion by chance, which is also unacceptable. EF thinks God revealed to us that there are causal relations. But doesn't revelation involve causal relations too? Isn't F also begging the question by his own criteria? EF says circular reasoning is acceptable when it comes to your ultimate foundation. In that case, how could F complain if the atheist took causation as his ultimate foundation? Alexander Pruss writes, if one insists that knowledge in each domain must have some causal cases, some cases where the object of knowledge causes the knowing, then one will be pleased at the fact that causal powers are the sort of thing that can sometimes be known causally. A causal power can cause us to know of it. What better way is there to know an object than to be in a causal relation with that object? Some philosophers think you can experience causation. John Searle writes, I think Hume was looking in the wrong place. He was looking in the detached way at objects and events outside of him, and he discovered that there was no necessary connection between them. But if you think about the character of your actual experiences, it seems to me quite common that you experience yourself making something happen, that is an intentional action, or you experience something making something happen to you, that is a perception. In both cases it is quite common to experience the causal connection. Elizabeth Anscombe, in Lectures, gave a good example of this. Suppose I am sitting here at my desk and a car backfires outside and it makes me jump. In this case I actually experience my involuntary movement as caused by the loud noise I heard. I do not have to wait for the conjunction of resembling instances. In this case I actually experience the causal nexus as part of my sequence of conscious experiences.
Contrary to how I am depicted on Darwin's Greatest Hits, I'm a wee bit smarter than that, aren't I?